Is it possible to forgive betrayal? And if it is possible, what kind of betrayal? And if not, how to deal with the betrayer? Just forgive him? Or take revenge? And is it possible to justify meanness under the guise of love? Helga got married quite late. She was already 29 years old. She had never been married before, nor had she ever had children. When she was 19, she met William and fell in love once and for all. They had a very beautiful relationship. All her friends were jealous, but Helga's parents were strongly against their relationship, let alone marriage. The fact is that Helga's family was very wealthy and influential, while William was just an ordinary guy from an average family. The parents forced their daughter to give up her lover, but she secretly dated him anyway. And then a terrible thing happened. William was charged with a serious offense and imprisoned. Helga did not believe that her lover was capable of such a terrible act. He would never hurt anyone, but everyone else assured her it was otherwise. At first, she wrote to him in prison, but he did not answer, and Helga lost hope of any further communication, especially since he had been sentenced to 15 years. Her parents gloated and said that it was only natural. They knew from the beginning that this was how it would end. They immediately saw who he really was, and only his childhood friend Joseph supported Helga and doubted William's guilt. Don't worry. The main thing is that you believe him, and what others say doesn't matter at all. You see, it hurts me, because William is a really good man, and if he had rich parents like you, my dad and mom would praise him and make excuses for him, even if he really did something horrible. That's what I just can't understand. Why? Well, that's the way the world works. The rich reach out to the rich, and the poor have to mingle and marry the poor. That's normal. No, it's not normal. I don't care how much money he has. I care about his human qualities and actions, not his bank account. I'll never put up with that. Okay. You just don't get nervous. Joseph wasn't a bad guy, but he was too soft for a man. He had no charisma or character. Helga knew that her parents had dreamed of marrying them since childhood, but she did not love him, and in principle did not see him as her husband. Joseph, on the other hand, was very attentive and did not give up hope of marriage. After William was sentenced, Helga became depressed and withdrew from everyone. At the university, of course, she went, but all the entertainment activities ignored. She was like that for several years, but eventually she began to return to a normal life. The only thing that didn't change was her personal life. She wouldn't let anyone near her. How many guys tried to woo her, all to no avail. A firm and categorical no sounded confidently to any suitor. But when Helga turned 29, she realized that there was nothing left to wait for, and she needed to start a family anyway. She did not want to marry the first man she met, so she decided, if I have to live without love, at least let it be someone I've known well and for a long time. So she married Joseph. 5 years of married life passed in peace and mutual respect. Joseph loved Helga and fulfilled all her whims. Helga accepted signs of attention, but was indifferent in return. She saw him only as a friend. It was difficult for her to forget her former love, much less fall in love with Joseph as a man. Helga saw that Joseph was angry, but she could not do anything about it. Before the wedding, she told him honestly, I am a one-woman man. I love one man. If you are ready to accept me with that, I will marry you. If not, then don't. Joseph agreed, but he hoped that in time he could win Helga's heart. But alas, it didn't work out. So they lived. Joseph loved and hoped. Helga accepted love and endured. Helga was on her way to the grocery store. On the way, she saw her friend and decided to have a little chat with her. She got out of the car and approached Betty. "Betty, hello, it's been a long time." "Oh, Helga, hello, good to see you," her friend replied cheerfully. "How are you?" "Oh, I'm fine, actually. How are you? Are you in a hurry? How about a cup of coffee?" "Come on, I'm free tonight, so we can have two," Betty smiled. They went into the nearest cafe and sat down at a table. At first, the conversation was about nothing. Who lives, what they do, family, children. "And you never gave birth to Joseph?" asked Betty. "No, I haven't. I don't want to. I'm not attracted to him as a man. He'd be a good father, though, I'm sure." "Well, you watch out or he'll get tired of waiting and leave you." "Oh, he won't. Our families are so tightly knit, and now the company's too. So we're like Siamese twins, you might say." "You don't work?" "No. Why? What am I going to do with so much money? I have the idea of opening my own store or beauty salon, but I haven't decided what kind. What about you? How's your life?" "It's different, Helga. It seems to have everything, but something is missing. My son is going to first grade this year, and apartments and cars, even bought a house near the sea, but still kind of empty inside. You can't get married without love." She suddenly stopped talking and looked at Helga. "I'm sorry. I know you have a similar situation." "Oh, come on, Betty. I made that decision myself. I had no choice." "I don't agree with you. There's always a choice. And you had one, too. With your financial resources, you could have never married and lived for your own pleasure. You could have had a lover and lived. Why do you need all this family trouble?" "Honestly, I don't even know why I agreed to it. My father said that Joseph loves me, waits for me, and I can't tell him the exact answer. I'm fooling my head." "What have you been doing to him? You honestly said you didn't love him." She stopped talking and stared at her friend. "You don't know anything about William?" Helga flinched at the mention of his name. "No, I've been writing to him for over a year, but I haven't received a single reply. I don't understand why he resented me. I didn't believe he was guilty, and even now I don't believe. And if he answered me, I would have been waiting for him all these 15 years. And then it hit Helga. Wait, he's supposed to come out this year. Helga even changed her face, as if she glowed from within. Betty looked at her friend and marveled at the instant change. "Do you want to see him?" "Sure I do. But do you realize he's changed a lot over the years, right? A lot. I don't care, to be honest. I want to look at him and ask him why he did this to me. Why?" "Well, I understand. I'd like to ask too if I were you." Betty's phone rang and she answered it. "Okay, I'll be right there." And then she turned to her friend. "Well, my only day off is ruined, and I have to go to work right away. They lost something there. As always, sorry I have to run. It was nice talking to you. Call me. Don't be gone so long." "Yes, of course. Run along. We'll be sure to call you. Don't be absent too." Betty ran away, and Helga sat alone. She looked around and suddenly thought, I should open a cafe too. A homey, cozy cafe. Yes, that's right. I should talk to Joseph. After paying the bill, Helga got into her car and drove to the company's office. Helga was very excited about the idea of the cafe. It seemed to her that it would help her get away from her routine and unnecessary thoughts. Helga went into the waiting room. Her secretary was not there. She was about to go into Joseph's office when she suddenly heard her husband talking on the phone. Joseph was angry and scolding someone. "Am I supposed to be interested in this? Do you think? What did I pay you money for? I don't care if you can't do it the other way. Make something up." Helga thought it was work talk. She was about to go in, but suddenly she heard, "If he comes back, I'll lose Helga forever." Helga froze at the door. Her heart began to beat faster and faster. She realized it was about her and someone else. Who? William? Was he paying money? Who and what for? Helga listened to the conversation as much as possible, afraid to miss a word. When is he being released? The unidentified opponent apparently replied to Joseph, and he continued, Well, make sure the time is added. He shouldn't get out of jail. Joseph threw the phone on the desk and almost smashed it. Helga stood dumbfounded at the office door. Then the secretary walked in. Helga looked at her pleadingly and put her finger to her lips. She nodded understandingly and went out again. Helga pulled herself together and opened the office door. Joseph's reaction was predictable. He was frightened. Quickly coming to his senses, Joseph got up from his desk and walked toward his wife. Oh, hi, honey. What's wrong? Why are you here? Hi, it doesn't matter why I'm here. What's more important is what I just heard. Don't you want to explain something to me? Joseph was confused. He tried to think of something to get out of the situation, but he was not a good improviser, so he could say nothing intelligible. Joseph, I'm waiting, said Helga firmly. I have nothing to tell, Joseph said with his head down. You'd better ask your father. What? Helga knew that her father was overbearing and cruel, but she had no idea that he was mean. Do you mean to tell me that my father knows something? He knows something, yes. He's the one who thought up and organized the whole thing. I only met with the right people on his behalf. They framed your William and put him in jail for 15 years so you wouldn't marry him. Why do you think they didn't let him out early? Because they paid a lot of money, and he never saw your letters. He was told you turned him down right away because of what he had done. It was evident that Joseph could not stop. He had kept it to himself for so long, and now he just had to get it out. I was against the plan, but your father gave me a choice. Either I help him and you stay with me, or he will destroy my business. I was never against him, though. I loved you and was jealous, but I consider such ways mean and unacceptable. Helga was greatly surprised. She saw that Joseph was not lying. Now what? And now it has come to light that William is getting out of jail, and your father is threatening me again. He's afraid that William will start looking for you. You will meet, and everything will be found out. So he wants William to stay there for a while longer, or better yet, forever. I'll talk to my father. He can't bully a man like that just because he loved his daughter. It's mean, after all. Helga, I'm afraid you don't know who your father really is. If you only come to him with such a question, William will not survive. And neither will I. Then what do we do? I don't know, really. He lowered his head. And forgive me if you can. I do love you. I know. But that doesn't excuse your complicity. She turned to go, but then turned and said confidently, And yes, I'm filing for divorce. I already figured that out, Joseph said doomfully. Helga walked out of the office. She needed to think of something urgently, to talk to her father somehow and sort out the situation. From the car, she called her mother. Ta, of course, had always been on her father's side. But Helga at least had to try to convince her. Her mother did not answer at first, but later she called back. Helga, honey, Daddy's sick. I called an ambulance. Come quickly. Just what we need, Helga thought and said, Yes, I'm on my way to you. Her father had a heart attack and was taken to the hospital. Helga sat in the chair looking at her mother and wondering whether or not to tell her the truth about her father. Okay, I'll tell her later. She's not taking anything in right now anyway. She's nervous. Mom, I need to get away for a while, okay? Yes, of course, her mom replied aloofly. Helga went to the police station to find out where William was serving his sentence so she could meet him outside the prison. She had a classmate who worked for the police, so it wasn't hard to get the information she needed. Why would you want to know that? Look, it's from me. I'm friends with his sister. She asked to know, Helga said, the first thing that came into her head. So why hasn't my sister ever written my brother a letter in 15 years? The logical question followed. Okay, not a sister. What do you care? Can you find out or not? Helga was angry. I'll do it now. 5 minutes later, Helga held in her hand a piece of paper with William's address and release date written on it. So it's the day after tomorrow, wondered Helga. I'll still have to make it to the prison. She drove home and quickly threw the essentials into her bag. Now she had to go to the airport. She had even forgotten about her father, who was in serious condition. Sitting on the plane, Helga tried to imagine their meeting with William, what she would tell him, how she would explain everything that had happened, and most importantly, whether William would ever be able to forgive her, since it was because of her that he was in this position. On the day in question, Helga stood outside the prison waiting. It was almost noon, and William still had not been released. I hope they haven't set him up again, Helga thought. The prison gate opened, and a man in jeans, an old-fashioned shirt, and a bag on his shoulders stepped out. Helga looked at his face. It was William. Only his head was half gray. He had aged a great deal, though he was not yet 40 years old. Helga walked towards him. William stopped and looked at the beautiful young woman walking in his direction. "William!" she shouted and ran toward him. "Helga?" William wondered. "William!" She threw herself on his neck. I'm sorry. For what? For what?" "It was my father who set you up the other day. I just found out the other day. Please forgive me." "I knew that from the beginning. But why are you apologizing? It's not your fault." "But he's my father." Helga cried on his shoulder. She was so happy to see him. Yes, he had changed, aged. But that was no surprise in 15 years of being in such a place. "William, I love you. I've always loved you. I really want to be with you. No one can stop us now for sure." William hugged Helga and looked into her eyes. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked earnestly. "Oh yes, I'm sure. I can't be without you, and now Father won't stop us. We will leave the country. I recently bought a house abroad. We can live there together, and my dividends from the company will be enough to live on. I've already thought of everything. Please say yes." "Helga, you haven't changed at all." He kissed Helga on the head. "Of course I agree. I couldn't even dream of that, my darling." They got into a cab and drove into their new life together, promising each other never to part again.